Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Life in General podcast. My name is Nick.
And my name is not Ian.
If your name is not Ian, what is your name then?
Not Ian.
Your name is Al Gore. You are Al Gore. I am Al Gore. That's how much passion Al Gore had in his voice when he talked.
Yeah, he's not a very charismatic person.
No, which is really weird because the president he worked under was. But
Yeah, well, the president he worked under had to be because he definitely wasn't. He was. I don't know. A lot of things worked out good when he was president, but I don't think he's a very good human being. Overall.
No, I don't know. I wouldn't say Bill Clinton is a bad human being. I wouldn't go that far, but he probably wasn't a very good husband.
Probably. No, definitely wasn't. Although, I'm not sure if I could be a good husband married to Hillary Clinton either.
No.
I don't really see the appeal.
I mean, to each their own, I guess. I'm not going to call him out on that, but I mean,
And I'm not even talking about looks. I mean, she was an alright looking girl when she was young, but just her personality, man, just doesn't.
it worked for Bill, I guess. Maybe
But
some,
it didn't
to some extent.
because we know that he
he had some side pieces.
some side pieces. Yeah, he had a lot of side pieces.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing over the next couple months. We're going to do some of these episodes, but I've been a big fan of alternate histories for a long time. Even like Man in the High Castle was a great TV show. It kind of piqued my interest in a lot of this kind of stuff. And then recently, Chuck Todd on his podcast did like a series of alternate history shows. He kind of like pre-recorded them for like the holiday season.
Right.
And so I figured we kind of do something similar. You know, I not
We're not above ripping things off.
we're not ripping anything. He didn't talk about this, but
Oh.
yeah,
But I meant the concept.
the concept
There's nothing new
in
under the sun.
2022. There's nothing new. Everything is borrowed from everything else.
Right. I wasn't saying it as a bad thing.
Jackass. But so today we're going to talk about what would have happened. What if?
What we think would happen.
What if Al Gore had won the 2000 election? I don't know why I want to say 2020, but
Yeah.
the 2000 election, which we know he did kind of win it with the popular vote. But we're going to stay away from the popular vote and all this stuff and the electoral
say that he
college.
got it.
He got the votes and actually became president. Because I think there's a lot of stuff that possibly could have happened that would have had long-lasting domino effects.
Yeah. Well, there'd be. Most Americans wouldn't know the definition of jihad. Maybe.
I would not go that far.
Yeah, I'm hypothesizing. I mean,
I think like the big thing. I don't think there would have been a September 11th. Just because the Clinton administration was very big on Osama bin Laden, and I kind of have a feeling that at some point, either late in Clinton's, I think if they hadn't gotten him late in Clinton's presidency, they would have gotten bin Laden early in Gore's presidency.
well, we know
and-
they didn't get him in.
I know we're talking alternate histories here, so.
Okay. Well, but only from the.
But we
from
know that
November of 2000.
late in Clinton's administration there was a big push to find and capture Osama bin Laden,
Right.
and
He was number one on the wanted list because of '93, right?
yes, and the attack on the USS Cole. You know, there's these events that were leading up to what happened on September 11th.
Oh, I thought we were talking about because if Gore had won, the people in charge who the inside job people wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah, well, 9/11 was not an inside job, but anyway, we're gonna stick with reality based here, and there was this whole like report that it said what bin Laden determined to strike inside the U.S. That the Bush administration like completely ignored,
Right.
because they had ulterior motives. They had their sights set on something else in the Middle East, and I don't necessarily think that the Gore administration would have had that same narrow focus.
Right. No, I know. That's what I said. I don't know if most Americans would know the term jihad right now,
But
because it only became popular because of what happened in.
I would say that had September 11th happened under Al Gore, I think the wars would have had the same outcome.
I don't.
Oh, absolutely.
We would not have gone into Iraq at all.
I think we would have.
There was no reason to go into
Iraq. Because that's the whole thing, is like people have this like mindset that Republicans are like these like hawks, and
no, Democrats are hawks too. Many of the Clinton administration were. Hillary's a fucking war hawk. My point is that we had no reason to go to Iraq. That was pushed solely by the Bush administration.
I think that we still might have ended up there. I think the outcomes would have been vastly different. I think the approach to anything in Iraq would have been much more aligned with what we did with Desert Storm in the early 90s. It would not have
half-assed.
Yeah, well, it would not have turned into an occupation of Iraq. I think it would have been much more targeted, possibly, to just remove Saddam Hussein.
Yeah,
I don't even know if we would have went to that extent.
Right. Because you can't remove Saddam Hussein and not occupy.
No, because you create a power vacuum, which is exactly what we did, and then created the Islamic State and everything else. ISIS,
yeah.
Islamic State.
Yeah.
So I think we definitely would have went into Afghanistan. We possibly could have went into Iraq, but not to the same level that we did. I think it would have been a much more targeted exercise.
Do you think? See, I don't know. I kind of disagree. I think, and it might have been to his detriment, but I don't. Al Gore is many things, but Warhawk isn't. He is not.
No, but that's the thing is. So if he's continuing the Clinton administration,
which I don't think he would.
I think he would have. The people that
of it, but not all of it.
But I'm talking about the people, the personnel wise. He would have. There have been a lot of holdovers, because there generally is. There was when George Bush became president. There was a lot of holdovers from the Reagan administration. It just what happens. So there would have been a lot of the same people, and I think you would have still had that kind of push, that military push, from that older guard in the Democratic Party.
Perhaps. I don't. Afghanistan, yeah. I mean, I think that was inevitable the second the planes hit the buildings. But I don't think that Iraq was never inevitable because of those attacks.
Yeah.
And that's why I do not think we would have gone into Iraq unless the situation had driven in that direction, which I don't even think it wasn't driving in that direction at the time.
No, and that's why I said if we would have done something in Iraq, it would have been a much more targeted, limited campaign. It would not have been a 10 or 15 year war.
And quite honestly, I think it would have been more likely that if we did go into Iraq, it would have had to have been as a peacekeeping operation between Iraq and Iran.
It could have been.
More than an invasion.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. I think one thing we would have been a little further ahead on is climate change.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think we would have made huge strides there, because that's basically what he campaigned on anyway.
Yeah,
it's really the only thing he's passionate about.
And I think the whole course of politics, I think, would have been different, because I think Gore probably wins re-election in 2004.
Depends on who he runs against, but yeah,
he probably does, because people. That's the whole thing, as we talked about in the last episode about why Hillary Clinton didn't run in 2004. Generally people don't like to run against a sitting president because they are so hard to beat.
Right. They used to be anyway.
Well, yeah.
I think we're about to see a second president in a row get only one term.
Yeah, so. Exactly. But there's a lot of other factors there. I think that
I will say this: we wouldn't have had a President Obama.
Probably not,
because
I think George Bush would have been president in 2008 and in 2012
if he ran.
Well, yeah, because Gore is out of office, and
But at that point, Bush would not have even been interested in running.
And Bush might have run against Gore in 2004,
right?
As that military guard, the old military guard, saying, "Look, well, they haven't done enough with
our security
against fight against terrorism." And Bush,
irony of that.
I know. Bush might have won the election in 2004,
right.
and then been president in 2008.
Well, that's true, right? But I'm thinking, best case scenario, if say Gore had won in 2000, he got 2 terms. I just don't think. I think Obama's presidency was made possible by the fact that we had just gotten off of 8 years of Bush.
Yeah.
Not to say that we wouldn't have had a President Obama, say, now.
Yeah.
Because obviously, I think after 8 years of Gore, we would have gotten a Republican president, period.
Yeah, generally how it goes.
So it would have not necessarily been Bush, but it would have been a Republican president.
I think it probably would have been Bush.
I think he may have just given up at that point. I don't know if he would
I
have.
don't see that.
Think he would have,
I don't see it happening. And like I said, if I was to bet money, he probably would have ran in 2004, especially if September 11th happens.
Well, see, that's my point. Say he ran in 2004, and we're being generous to our Democratic colleague, and he won in 2004 twice, beat Bush twice. I don't see Bush running in 2008 after being beat twice.
No. But I think Bush doesn't run in 2004 unless it's pretty. He's got a pretty good shot at beating him. So I think Bush probably would have won the 2004 election.
Right. And then again, it's still hard to say because the country would have been a different country then.
Oh, absolutely.
And Bush won, or at least got the vast majority of his votes in 2000, based solely on this idea of family values and bringing morality back to the White House, which that wouldn't have been an argument.
No,
against
because that was the whole thing that propelled Bush in 2000 was that everything that had happened in the White House under Bill Clinton,
right,
and it really kind of pushed him to the presidency, really.
So Bush wouldn't have had that platform.
Yeah.
So he could have. I guess I agree with you. He could have won on the whole. These guys are soft on the war
military
effort. Yeah.
And I think that would have been had September 11th happened, and there was some kind of minor targeted attack in Afghanistan. I can completely see that kind of campaign working, especially in 2004. Yeah, definitely.
Well, and here's the other thing: if Gore was president and 9/11 happens, we go into Afghanistan, we would have gone in there with a much stronger United Nations / NATO backing as well.
Yes. What I will say, though, is while we might have had a little more of a NATO push, I think there would not have been that sense of unity at home, though. I think had September 11th happened under Al Gore, the Republicans would have blamed him for it. Which, hey, you know what? The Democrats didn't blame George Bush. I mean, they did to a certain level, but there wasn't like this outward push. I think it would have been a much more polarized country.
The country didn't get polarized till Iraq.
No. But what I'm saying, though, is I think that the Republicans would have turned the public against Al Gore and the Democrats.
Right.
They would have polarized and politicized 9/11 in ways that the Democrats did not do.
Right.
At least on a large scale effort.
Right.
After it happened, I think that had Al Gore won in 2000, that you probably don't see Donald Trump as president.
Probably not,
because there would have been no birtherism. There wouldn't have been a Tea Party.
Well, because as we said, there wouldn't have been a President Obama at the time. Yeah. Obama's chance would have been pushed way back.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's another. I guess that's a positive thing,
right? I mean, don't get me wrong. I've made it clear on this podcast many times that I have a lot of issues with some of the policies of President Obama, but
I think we all do.
Right. However, I think he did the best he could under the circumstances, and I would put him in as one of the handful of decent presidents, because I think he's a decent person.
Yeah.
Because, we elevate presidents to this level of like, extraordinary human level, but they're just people. And I think at the end of the day, if their character is good, it kind of negates some of the necessity of the bad stuff that they've done. You know what I mean? For example, Obama's drone policy. I don't think there was no malice there, and I think he continued it because it was working to some extent. I still think it was wrong. I still think it was immoral, but he's a moral person. So my opinion of him is at that level.
Yeah.
So, but I think if not having him as president would have saved us what we've endured for the last almost 6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not in 2 of those years almost is not even with Trump as a president. I think it would have been worth not having him as president.
Yeah.
Do
you think there would have been a push had 9/11 happened under Gore?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there would have been a push by the Republicans to try to impeach him over it?
No, I don't think so, because I don't think they would have had public support for that.
I don't know. I don't know. Just because, like I said, I 100% believe that the Republicans would have tried to use it in a much larger scale, Benghazi kind of.
Yeah, but I don't think they would have gone so far as impeachment, because that's one of those situations where they kind of like with the filibuster, as we've argued. They don't want it to. Nobody really wants the filibuster, but they're afraid of not having it. And I think an impeachment of Al Gore under those circumstances would be, well, we don't want to necessarily be in this position ourselves one day.
Yeah.
So I don't think they would have gone that far.
Had Gore been president on September 11th, do you think they would have shot down those planes? Because,
well, it wasn't. They didn't have. Well, that's a good question. I think because there was that strange training exercise thing that was going on that same morning.
Here's the thing, and this is why
we're talking a completely different commander in chief with those training exercises have been going on at that time.
In 1999, do you know who Payne Stewart is?
I do not.
Payne Stewart was a golfer. Okay. So he's on his plane, and there was some kind of issue with the cabin lost all air pressure or whatever it was. Anyway, it's flying in the air. Everyone's dead on the airplane.
Okay.
Bill Clinton launches military jets because the plane went off course.
Okay.
Launches jets to go check on the airplane, and that's when they saw that he was dead, and they followed the plane until it crashed in the ocean. That was a policy that was ended by George Bush as far as tailing planes that will go off course. If it had been kept in place, as soon as those planes go off course, there will have been fighter jets in the air.
Okay. Why would he cancel that policy?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah, it's a really good question, isn't it?
Oh, inside job, because it's an inside job.
I'm just saying, there's a lot of weird things that happened around that I don't believe it was an inside job, but there's just a lot of weird shit like that just makes you go, what? Why? And right before this, it actually causes a big problem. It's so weird.
So had that policy been in place, there would have been fighter jets up there prior to those. But here's the thing. Man, do you pull the trigger
on civilians who are very much alive?
Yeah.
I think
they would have had to do it before it reached New York. Once it gets over New York, there's no way to shoot those planes down.
Right. I think, one plane gets through, the second one does not.
Yeah. Because it was, 7 minutes or something like that?
In between the planes?
Yeah.
No, I think it was longer than that. I have to look, but I think it was longer than that.
It wasn't a long period of time. But
no, but it was less than 30 minutes, but I don't think it was 7. It was longer than that.
I don't know. But I don't know. That's because it's a really good idea. Not idea, but it's a really interesting kind of thought to go down. Whether or not
if that policy had not been taken out of place, So Al Gore wins, and he doesn't change that policy. I think at least 3 of the 4 planes get shot down.
Wait. So you mean there was a 4th plane in?
2 in the World Trade Center, 1 at the Pentagon.
No. Remember, the Pentagon wasn't a real plane.
Well, right.
It was a missile that struck it. Remember? No.
Well, yeah. I was told not to go down that road at the beginning of the show, so I left that part out. But yeah.
But because I can also see like
there were 4 planes.
had planes been in the air and shot those planes down,
Mm-hmm.
I can also see that turning on. On Gore
well,
also.
Yeah, but a smart person would say, in that situation, yes, we took a course of action that killed civilians, but we took a course of action that killed 100 civilians and saved 1,000 civilians.
Yeah. No. I completely. I understand and agree with you, but I think there would have been people trying to twist it.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, it's always been a Republican policy. Going back at least as far as Nixon.
Yeah.
If not farther. I mean, the Republican Party really got their panties in a twist under Roosevelt anyway.
I think that
Eisenhower was the last rational Republican president.
Eisenhower was the last legitimate Republican president.
And
I can make it.
He's a president that I think was a good person too.
Yeah. I can make an argument for every single Republican president since then being an illegitimate president.
Right.
But,
well, I know, and I would agree with you. But
yeah, I think the other thing that we wouldn't have had are the Bush tax cuts, which caused part of the recession that we had.
Right. Well, and there would have probably been. Well, and we wouldn't have had some of the cuts on regulation that led to the problem in 2008 with the housing market.
The housing market.
Because a lot of that was because of Bush's deregulation.
Yep.
Which were more of Reagan's policies.
It's not likely, but I can see a path where we go from 8 years from Clinton to 8 years of Gore to theoretically 8 years of Obama.
There's an argument to be made, but I think that would still lead us to something maybe not as bad, but something on par with Trump.
I think at that point we would have had a Donald Trump presidency.
Yeah. Because Donald Trump's entire presidency is really the result of angry, middle-aged white men not liking the idea of a black man being president.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of his popularity comes from that.
So the other interesting thing about Donald Trump is there was a meeting. God, I don't remember who it was. It was early on when Obama was running for president in 2008. There was a meeting. They had. I'm sorry. It was early on in the presidency. Early on in Obama's first term, there was some. They weren't like real scandals, but there was some issues they'd had with several like state dinners, right? And Donald Trump approached a couple of the heads in Obama's staff and said, "Hey, look, let me take care of these state dinners from there on." Mm-hmm. And the phone call was never returned to Donald Trump about it. And I think that missed opportunity spurred Donald Trump to end up supporting birtherism and everything else and going down this alternate path. There is a possibility there, and I forgot who the guy was. He's been on like MSNBC before, and I just recently read an article where he was actually talking about this, and he said, all this could have turned out very differently had I just returned that phone call.
Right. Well, it's amazing how
because we all know
effect,
we all know how thin-skinned Donald Trump is.
Oh, absolutely.
So if he puts out the olive branch, because like I said, this was like 2008, 2009, or this is before the rise of birtherism and everything else. Donald Trump wanted to, because Donald Trump he wants to be involved with the big people,
right?
And there's no other bigger people than the president, right. So to be in charge of state dinners would have been a huge thing for him. And who knows? Had that phone call been returned, we might have never even had a Donald Trump presidency.
Yeah. It's funny how, like I said,
How
cause and effect.
one little thing,
Right.
one little thing has these long-lasting ripples.
Yeah. Where's the, was it the TVA from Loki?
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if there's a universe where that happens.
Yeah.
The multiverse. I mean,
the multiverse.
I wonder if there's a universe where that happened.
What? Donald Trump wasn't president, or they had?
Well, that phone call was returned, and it shifted,
it might have been. I think it was David Axelrod.
Might have been, but it shifted the course of events considerably just from that one phone call. You know.
Yeah, because of that missed opportunity, Trump turns against Obama. The birtherism thing kind of kicks up. He takes advantage. Trump takes advantage of the birtherism, leads this charge against Barack Obama, and then, of course, runs for presidency and wins. You know, so it's just the effect is from, I don't know. It's kind of interesting to look at some of that stuff. I think.
Well, I mean, I'm not a big believer in the whole butterfly effect thing because, you know, the very premise that, you know, a butterfly flapping its wings on one side of the planet creates a tidal wave on the other.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not true. But, you know, little things like a single phone call could alter the course of history to some degree. Sure. I mean, it's there's nothing to say that it couldn't.
Yeah.
You know, lesser things have happened, or greater things have happened for lesser reasons.
Yeah. But it just kind of, and that's kind of the whole thing that I really love about looking back on these like alternate history kind of things is you could take one little small thing that seems very insignificant at the time, and then 20 years later has, you know, huge life-altering effects.
There's a program on, I think it's on the Travel Channel, and I want to say it's called History's Mysteries or something like that. But basically, the show is every episode they go through and they'll like go to little museums and they'll find these little items and they'll like, you know, this hairbrush from 1852 changed the course of science. And I mean, it's an exaggeration and not an actual story, but it's stuff like that where they'll say, you know, how this hairbrush belonged to this person and he handed it to this person and they did this and discovered this and, you know, all because of the hairbrush.
Yeah.
Or hair comb or, you know, it's something simple like that. And it's amazing how often that little shit like that will happen. And, you know, I don't remember what the actual details were, but it was something like that led to the discovery of penicillin.
Yeah.
And then that changed the course of human history right there.
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't have a whole lot else to add to it.
It's difficult. I mean, we're not historians. We're not qualified to question what life would be like.
Oh,
Nobody is. Really.
I think we are qualified.
Well, we're qualified to imagine, but that's about it. But there's only so far you can take imagination, you know.
Yeah. It just I think we would live in a very different world had, you know, Maricopa County or whatever. Actually, what was the county of Florida? Whatever.
That is Maricopa. Man.
Is it?
I believe so.
Wait,
I could be wrong.
No, Maricopa County is in Arizona.
Oh, whatever it is.
But whatever the county is in Florida, had they, you know, not change the election results basically,
because of the hanging chads.
Well, because a lot of different things. But
well, it just again proves my point why Florida shouldn't be part of this union.
Why is that?
Because it's America's big smelly dick.
I could say
in more ways than one.
I could say that for Texas also.
America's our stinky ass.
Texas is?
Yeah.
You mean?
What did I say?
You said America.
Oh yeah, America's a big stinky ass too now. The whole country's a stinky ass now. No, Texas is the big stinky ass, and you know, the Gulf is the taint.
Oh Jesus!
And Florida's the fucking stinky dick.
But I don't know. There are some good things in the state of Florida.
Just the coastline.
Yeah, well, pretty much. But
everything else is fucking swamp and alligators.
Yeah, but
mosquitoes.
Yeah, but I think that it's interesting because had Gore won, I think we could have had a couple of different, very, very different.
We wouldn't be staring down such a glaring barrel of a gun that is climate change. Potentially, things might have been reversed enough because of him to at least maybe postpone, where we wouldn't be seeing the glaciers breaking up now, and be saying in maybe 10 years half of our coastlines will be gone.
Yeah.
Whereas we'd be saying, oh well, we need to do more because maybe in 30 years that might happen because of things that we've already done.
But here's the thing, though. I can also see Gore pushing the climate change stuff maybe too much in his first term, and it backfiring and ending up in a Bush presidency in 2004.
Well, the thing about Americans, especially, I think it is a human trait. But
There's
Americans,
a good thing about Americans?
Well, it's not a good thing. It's a trait of Americans that we can only ever deal with things after they've gotten bad.
Yes.
We are never good at prevention for anything.
We're reactive instead of proactive.
Yeah. We're all about the science sucks when it comes to a vaccine that can protect us and prevent illness, but we're okay with the science that says that this Pfizer pill will cure us if we get sick.
Yeah.
It
also would have been interesting to see how much involvement Bill Clinton had in the Gore presidency.
Honestly, I don't think he would have had that much. Hillary, maybe. Not Bill.
Well, Hillary would have been involved because Hillary would have been running for Senate.
But she would have been involved in the sense that she's in the circle, in the sphere of influence, just maybe from her Senate seat, but kind of the way, I wouldn't say McConnell had influence over Trump, but how McConnell was in Donald Trump's sphere.
Yeah.
I think Hillary would have done something similar with that.
Yeah.
I don't think Bill and Al Gore actually liked each other that much.
It was a relationship out of necessity almost.
Right.
But
much like Bill and Hillary's marriage.
Speaking of that, there's a really interesting book out there. I don't remember the name of it or who the author is, but I remember hearing, there was a podcast I listened to where this guy talked about it. This is several years back now, but I think it was when like Man in the High Castle and all that stuff first started. He wrote this book years ago about, basically it's what if Hillary Clinton would have never married Bill Clinton. Mm-hmm. And it ended up, the way it kind of veered off was, I don't remember if it was like, she ended up in Illinois and running for the Senate in Illinois. So there was no Barack Obama senator.
Okay.
And then, and she ended up being like a political opponent to Bill Clinton. It's really, at least the way he talked about the book, it sounded really interesting. But there's definitely some interesting books and different resources and stuff.
Alternative history is not a new thing. I mean, Harry Turtledove has been writing alternative history books for fiction.
Yeah.
For decades now. What if Hitler had won World War II? What if the Confederacy had won the Civil War?
Yeah.
What if Abraham Lincoln had never become president? Those kinds of things. And he's been writing books about that. I don't know if he's even still alive. Because like I said, his books go back decades. But, so there's always been a fascination, a mild fascination with it. Plus, growing up in the 80s, we had, Back to the Future, which, I mean, we're pushing science fiction really far here, or the fiction part of it. But what makes Back to the Future Part 2 so fascinating is seeing the alternative Hill Valley after Biff becomes rich and everything. So there's always that what if, that's where my fascination with it really kind of came from.
With the last kind of aspect of the Gore presidency, I guess the one thing we haven't talked about yet is Hurricane Katrina.
I think the people would have gotten treated a lot better, and there would have been a lot more aid and assistance, and it would have been cleaned up a lot faster. Yeah, for sure. No question. No question.
I wholeheartedly believe that. Also, I think it would have been
the humanitarian
managed. It would have been managed properly to begin with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What was it? I remember like Bush was standing on like a pile of debris or whatever, and he was like talking about the head of FEMA at the time. And he's like, oh, he's a good guy. And he's like just fucking things up everywhere. And like, no, there was no aid getting anyone. It was like,
now what's worse?
New Orleans was a fucking war zone.
It was a war zone. What's worse, that or Donald Trump going to Puerto Rico and just tossing paper towel rolls to people?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's like, I'm not really sure which one's worse.
And actually, now that I think about it, Bush might not have ran for president in 2004. Do you know who would have, though? John McCain. Yeah. That's the war hawk you would have had running for president.
But it would have been a John McCain from the same John McCain we had in 2000.
Yes.
Which, for all intents and purposes, wasn't that bad of a candidate.
No.
He was a war hawk.
Yeah.
But
I think so. You take a John McCain with a sane running mate against
Al Gore.
McCain
wins every time.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt.
Yeah. So maybe you end up having 8 years of John McCain. 2004, 2008.
That scenario. Gore wins 2000. McCain runs in 2004. So we have 4 years of Gore, 8 years of McCain.
Yeah.
For sure. That would put us to 2012, right?
Yep.
Now,
so 2012, maybe Hillary's, after spending years in the Senate.
Right. She's definitely in a better position in 2012 than she ever could have been in 2016.
Yeah.
For sure.
I still think she loses in 2012, but
it depends on who the running.
No, because that's the whole thing with Hillary Clinton is she's, even with all the baggage that Bill Clinton had, Hillary Clinton was always seen as this big boogeyman, and I really don't see why. It makes no fucking sense. Because the way that and that was the whole thing with in 2016, you had, serial, cheater in Donald Trump, who the religious right flocked to, running against, and I know you won't. I know you'll hate it when I say this. He's also an atheist, right?
So I don't care. That makes no difference to me.
Hold on. So you've got an atheist,
but he doesn't claim
serial cheater that the religious right flocks against, and then you have Hillary Clinton, who is a very religious woman. She has been for many, many years. I mean,
she claims to be, but okay.
No, there's no claims to it. She has been active in
because that's the political. She's an opportunist, Nick.
No, because she's been like that way since she was younger. But anyway, so you have the religious aspect of America that goes for the serial cheater against the female religious woman.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, you're always going to have the religious going after be geared towards a male person of power over a female person of power. Anyway,
but what I was going to say though is that would not have been any different in 2012 with whoever, and that's why I say she doesn't win.
But that's more on her gender than it has anything to do with her character.
Yeah, but and that's why I never thought Hillary Clinton was a bad candidate.
She was in the sense that she lacked the ability to see for one the threat that Donald Trump posed. Second,
I will say that I think there was a
connection.
There was a large part of the Democratic machine that felt the same way. I remember talking to people in the run up, during the primaries, and they're like, "Oh, Donald Trump has no fucking shot."
Right.
I'm like,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think most of us didn't really consider him a threat at first.
So I think
I started seeing him as a threat as pretty much as soon as he won the primary.
Yeah, but and I feel like she kind of felt the same way, and that's why she didn't campaign in states that she probably should have campaigned in. That it might not have made any difference anyway.
Right. The only thing I would ask you is, why does it matter that Donald Trump's an atheist?
It doesn't. But
what about him makes you think? Because he's never said he was. Well, I don't doubt that he is.
He is. But just
in the sense that he doesn't see anything.
I just find it like, I've always had an issue with evangelicals in the United States. They've always fucking bothered me, even as a religious.
No, they
person.
should.
But it's the hypocrisy of it.
Oh well, that's.
And it just it's interesting Now, and I understand, I guess I do understand to a certain level why they support Donald Trump. And I think a lot of that goes back to the death of Scalia and having that the vacancies on the Supreme Court.
I guess. I mean, it obviously worked for him because
that's the one
Wade's
thing
going to get overturned eventually.
That's the one thing you can
Court.
definitely say 100% about Democrats versus Republicans is there are large swaths of Republicans in this country that their sole focus is the judiciary.
Right.
And Democrats don't care about that. At least not at the same level.
Right.
You know,
no, I think they care about it. They just don't know how to. They don't know how to play the long game.
Possibly, yeah. I guess I can say that. But, there's been this, 30, 40, 50-year run where Republicans overall have looked at the judiciary in the United States and said, we've got to change this. If we're going to change America, we need to change these judges.
Well, that's because,
not necessarily just the Supreme Court. I'm talking about judges across the country.
Well, that's because that's where the changes have been made. That's where you get your civil rights legislation.
Yeah.
That's where you get Roe v. Wade. That's where you get those things. So that, of course, that's what they're going to go after.
Yeah, because you can't. Well, like you said earlier, Republicans don't necessarily have policy.
Yeah, they don't.
So they're able to change America to suit their principles through the judiciary.
Right.
And that's what they're doing now.
Oh, I know.
Trump has 3 Supreme Court people, 3 Supreme Court justices on that bench because of him.
Right.
In his next term, how many more is he going to get?
Well, I could see him getting at least one more.
Yeah.
Which would completely ruin the court.
I don't know about that, but I think that the funny thing is, like, speaking of the Supreme Court, and I was thinking about this when I was driving home today, it's interesting to think of John Roberts as kind of like the moderate voice on the Supreme Court
Right.
now. And
Yeah.
he kind of is. He's at least the person that wants to protect the overall identity of the Supreme Court.
Right.
John Roberts hates the idea of people in America thinking of the Supreme Court as a political weapon.
Right. Which is what it's become as a result of exactly what we're talking about with the Republican view on it.
Yeah.
So they see it as a sword, whereas it should be more of a scalpel.
Yeah.
So,
but I don't know. It's an interesting kind of rabbit hole, I guess, to kind of go down and think about all the different stuff that could have happened had Gore won in 2000. Right?
Sure.
But any questions or comments, you can email us at Ian. What's our email address?
At Life in General Pod.
It's lifeingeneralpod@gmail.com. There's not an at up before it.
What did I say?
You said at Life in General Pod.
Oh, did I? I didn't mean to.
lifeingeneralpod@gmail.com.
That's what I said.
Yeah, that's what you said. Jackass.
So what I said.
But check us out on Facebook, and that's about all I got, man. Until next time.
Talk to y'all later.
Peace.
Play my role, let me tell you about it. This shit right here, man, I'm about it. Only real niggas reside around me. Yo, lady, drop a guard around me. Dip like I know you can, bitch. Show me the ropes like we in the ring. Got you took over, you wanna hang. Shoulder to shoulder, the niggas basic. You know I won't lie. You know that I ain't for that fuck shit. You niggas alright, but I'm way better and she love it. Know that y'all sick as fuck. Here go this tissue, bro. We taking the dub, hoping you get you some. This hit like a pick me up. She taking my drugs. Know they see the sign. That's some dollar signs. Know they sick as fuck. Know they sick as fuck. Tell them get well soon. Tell them get well soon. Know you sick as fuck. Get well soon.
Oh shit. Watch out, you done caught Billy. Oh shit. Right now, and I'm smiling in your face, bitch. With a gold smile, you should probably make placement to your eye. Niggas sick as fuck. Standing with niggas who down for that party. Who down for some bitches who showing their bodies. Swear to God, nigga, this Molly got me up and rolling. These bodies of water. Bring that shit in bottles. We might shit the party that hit when we stylin'. Wildin' out of the party.